The stars had always called to Captain Sarah Chen. Even as a child, she'd stare up at the night sky from her family's farm in Nebraska, wondering what mysteries lurked in the darkness between those distant pinpricks of light. Now, standing on the bridge of the UVS Thunderchild, humanity's most advanced warship, she was about to find out just how dark those mysteries could be. Multiple contacts, Captain. Counting 15. No, 23 vessels approaching from the Procyon system. Lieutenant Commander Jackson called out, his voice steady despite the tension that gripped the bridge. Sarah nodded, her face betraying nothing of the anxiety churning in her stomach. The Thunderchild was the pinnacle of human engineering, a marvel of technology that had united Earth's fractured nations in its construction. But would it be enough? Classification, she asked, moving to stand beside her tactical officer. Unknown configurations, ma'am. Nothing matching any known consortium designs. He looked up, eyes widening slightly. They're big, Captain. Much bigger than anything we've encountered before. The bridge fell silent. The Galactic Consortium had warned Earth about venturing beyond the established orders. For centuries, humanity had been the newcomers, the primitives barely worth acknowledging in interstellar politics. Earth had been permitted a small presence in nearby systems. Carefully monitored, of course, but nothing more. The Thunderchild's mission was to change that perception forever. Broadcast our identification on all frequencies, Sarah ordered, and sound general quarters. The klaxon wailed throughout the ship, sending its crew of 3,000 to battle stations. Unlike the sleek, crystalline vessels of the consortium races, the Thunderchild was built with one purpose in mind: to survive. Layers of composite armor surrounded its vital systems. Redundant power cores hummed deep within its belly. And its weapons that the consortium representatives had dismissed as quaint during their last diplomatic visit, were primed and ready. No response to our hails, Captain, Communications Officer Rivera reported. They're maintaining course and speed. Intercept in 6 minutes. Sarah took her command chair, feeling the subtle vibration of the ship's massive engines through the deck plates. Put it on the main screen. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the approaching Armada. The alien vessels moved with unnatural precision, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent sheen that reminded Sarah of oil on water. They were beautiful, in their way, organic curves and spiraling structures that seemed to defy conventional engineering. Nothing like the brutal, functional designs that Earth favored. Are they charging weapons? She asked. Lieutenant Wei shook his head, confusion evident on his face. No energy signatures that would indicate weapons, Captain. But there's something else. Some kind of energy field surrounding each vessel. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Sarah's eyes narrowed. The Thunderchild was humanity's insurance policy, a declaration to the galaxy that Earth would no longer accept second-class status. After the Io colony massacre, after watching helplessly as the Drovian fleet obliterated 2 million human lives for the crime of mining an ecologically sensitive moon, Earth had sworn, never again. Open a secure channel to FLEET, she ordered. They need to know what we're facing here. Captain, Jackson called out suddenly. The lead vessel is accelerating. Intercept now in 3 minutes. The bridge crew tensed. This wasn't supposed to happen. First contact protocols were clear throughout known space. Maintain distance until communication was established. These ships, whoever they belonged to, were breaking the most fundamental rule of interstellar diplomacy. Launch reconnaissance drones, Sarah ordered. I want more data on these ships before they get any closer. The Thunderchild shuddered slightly as a dozen drones shot from their launch tubes, speeding toward the approaching Armada. On the tactical display, Sarah watched their progress. Tiny green dots against the vastness of space. FLETC Ullman acknowledges, Captain, Rivera said. Admiral, Zhao is standing by for updates. The 7th Fleet has been placed on high alert. Sarah nodded grimly. The 7th Fleet, Earth's primary defense force, was still hours away even at maximum FTL. The Thunderchild stood alone. The drones reached the alien vessels, their sensors probing the mysterious ships. Data began flooding into the Thunderchild's computers, streams of information that the ship's AI struggled to analyze. "Captain, I'm getting some very strange readings," White reported, his fingers dancing across his console. "These ships, they're not just ships. They're partially organic. And the energy field, it's some kind of symbiotic relationship between the biological and technological components." Sarah leaned forward. "Meaning?" "Meaning they're unlike anything the consortium races use. These aren't Drovians, Celtic, or any other known species." We looked up, his expression grave. "I think we've just made first contact with something entirely new." Before Sarah could respond, the drones surrounding the lead alien vessel suddenly went dark, their signals cutting off simultaneously. "All drones lost," Jackson reported, the first hint of alarm creeping into his voice. No indication of weapons fire. They just stopped. Sarah's mind raced. The Thunderchild was designed to match anything the known races could field, but these ships were an unknown quantity. If they could disable Earth's most advanced reconnaissance technology without firing a shot. "Bring us about," she ordered. "Prepare to disengage." "Captain." Executive Officer Thompson questioned from her right. "We're under direct orders to assert our presence here." "And we will," Sarah replied. "But I'm not risking the ship against an unknown enemy until we understand what we're facing. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor." "XO." Thompson nodded reluctantly. The Thunderchild's engines flared as it began its turn, and then faltered. "Engineering reports power fluctuations," Rivera called out, alarm evident in her voice. "Something's interfering with our drive systems." Sarah's blood ran cold. The ship's drives were supposedly impervious to outside interference. The armor, the weapons, the shields, all of it was meaningless if they couldn't move. "The alien vessels are adjusting course to match our position," Jackson reported. "They're surrounding us, Captain." On the main display, Sarah watched as the alien armada shifted with that same eerie precision, forming a perfect sphere around the Thunderchild. Earth's mightiest warship, the vessel meant to announce humanity's arrival as a major power, now sat trapped like a fly in a web. "Get those engines back online," she ordered, her voice calm despite the situation. "And prepare all weapons." As the crew scrambled to comply, Sarah stared at the alien vessels on the screen. For centuries, humanity had looked to the stars with hope and wonder. They had joined the Galactic Consortium expecting partnership and found themselves relegated to the children's table instead. The Thunderchild was supposed to change all that now, as the alien ships closed in around them. Sarah Chen realized that the galaxy might be a far more dangerous place than anyone on Earth had imagined. And the true test of humanity was just beginning. The bridge of the Thunderchild fell into an eerie quiet, broken only by the soft beeps of instruments and the hushed voices of crew members at their stations. Sarah stood motionless, watching the alien vessels on the main display. They maintained their perfect formation around her ship, neither advancing nor retreating. "Status report," she said finally, breaking the silence. "Engineering reports drive systems at 40% capacity and declining," Thompson replied. "Whatever they're doing, it's like they're draining our power. Weapon systems remain operational, but shield integrity is fluctuating." Sarah nodded, mind racing through their options. The Thunderchild was designed to be the ultimate deterrent, a show of force that would make the consortium races think twice before dismissing humanity again. But she hadn't expected to find something entirely outside the known galactic community. "Open all data channels to FLETCOM," she ordered. "If these things take us out, Earth needs to know what they're facing." The memory of the Io colony massacre flashed in her mind. Her sister had been one of the colonists. 2 million lives wiped out because humanity had unknowingly violated some obscure Drogian ecological protocol. The consortium had offered nothing but token condolences and warnings to be more careful next time. That day had changed everything for Earth's relationship with the wider galaxy. "Lieutenant Wei, any progress on analyzing these ships?" Sarah asked, moving to stand beside the science officer. Wei's fingers danced across his console. Their hulls appeared to be some kind of semi-permeable membrane rather than traditional armor. The energy field surrounding them responds to our scans, almost like an immune system. He looked up at her, dark eyes troubled. "Captain, I think they might be semi-sentient themselves. Like the high ships from the Outer Rim legends?" Thompson asked, eyebrows raised. "Similar concept, but far more advanced," Wei replied. "Those were just stories told by fringe traders. This," he gestured at the screen, "this is something else entirely." Sarah had read about the supposed high ships in the consortium archives. Tales of massive living vessels that appeared without warning at the edges of known space, only to vanish again before any official contact could be made. Most dismissed them as space myths, the sort of stories spacers told to frighten new recruits. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Rivera called suddenly. It's using our own communication protocols." Sarah straightened her uniform jacket. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and Sarah felt her breath catch. The image showed what appeared to be the interior of one of the alien vessels, a cavernous space of pulsing, organic walls interwoven with crystalline structures. In the center stood a figure. It was roughly humanoid, but taller and more slender, with skin that shimmered with the same iridescent quality as the ships themselves. Its eyes, if they could be called that, were large, multifaceted organs that seemed to shift color as it moved. When it spoke, its voice resonated with a harmonic quality that made the hair on the back of Sarah's neck stand up. "Vessel of Earth, we have been watching, waiting." Sarah stepped forward. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. You're interfering with our systems. Release us immediately." The alien's head tilted slightly. "Your vessel. It carries death. This is not permitted." Sarah exchanged a glance with Thompson. "We're on a peaceful mission of exploration. Our weapons are defensive only." "We have witnessed Earth," the alien continued as if she hadn't spoken. "We have seen what you did to the Drovians at the Battle of Proxima." Sarah stiffened. The Battle of Proxima had been Earth's first real victory against a consortium power, a desperate defense that had ended with 3 Drovian cruisers destroyed and humanity finally gaining some respect in galactic politics. But it had happened just 2 months ago. How did these beings know about it? "The Drovians attacked our colony," she replied carefully. "We defended ourselves, as is our right under consortium law." The alien's eyes shifted from blue to a deep violet. "Consortium. Small minds. Small laws. There are older rules in this galaxy, human. Deeper truths." Behind her, Sarah could hear Wei frantically typing, recording everything. If they survived this encounter, every word would be analyzed by Earth's best xenolinguists and diplomatic teams. "We mean no disrespect to your rules," Sarah said, "but we cannot allow the massacre of our people to go unanswered." "Vengeance," the alien said, the words seeming to echo through the bridge. "This is your purpose. Your ship carries the stain of it." Before Sarah could respond, Lieutenant Jackson called out, "Captain, I'm detecting energy buildups in the alien vessels. They're linking together somehow." On the screen, the alien extended a long 6-fingered hand. "We are the keepers. We maintain balance. Your species disturbs this balance. We have a right to exist." Sarah shot back, anger flaring. "Earth will not be subjugated or eliminated. If you know about Proxima, then you know what we're capable of." The alien's expression remained unreadable, but something like amusement colored its voice. "Your defiance is noted, Captain Chen. It changes nothing. Your vessel will be studied, your technology examined. Then a decision will be made regarding humanity's place in the greater design." The transmission cut off abruptly, returning the screen to the view of the surrounding ships. Sarah noticed they were now pulsing with a synchronous rhythm, the energy field between them strengthening. "They're creating some kind of containment field," White reported, voice tense. "Our power levels continue to drop, down to 32%. Sarah turned to her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, target the nearest vessel and prepare to fire main batteries." "Captain," Thompson said quietly, "if these are truly some unknown species with technology beyond the consortium, firing might be seen as an act of war." "They've already committed an act of war by disabling our ship," Sarah replied. "And I don't plan on being a specimen in their laboratory." She turned to Rodriguez. "Fire when ready." The Thunderchild shuddered as its main railguns discharged, sending hyper-accelerated projectiles toward the nearest alien vessel. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the projectiles approached their target, and passed straight through, as if the ship wasn't even there. "Direct hit," Rodriguez reported, confusion evident in his voice. "But no damage. Sensors indicate the projectiles passed through some kind of phase shift in their hull." Sarah's mind raced. The Thunderchild's weapons were designed to penetrate even the most advanced consortium defenses. If these keepers could simply ignore them. "Captain," Rivera called, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from FLETCOM. Admiral Zhao." Sarah nodded, and the grim face of Admiral Zhao appeared on a secondary screen. Static distorted his image, but his voice came through clearly enough. "Captain Chen, we've received your data stream. The 7th Fleet is en route to your position, but we've detected more of these vessels appearing throughout our territory. They're at Mars, Luna, even Earth orbit. Whatever you've encountered out there, it seems they've been watching us for some time." Sarah felt a cold knot form in her stomach. This wasn't just about the Thunderchild anymore. It was about humanity's survival. "Admiral, these beings call themselves Keepers. They seem to disapprove of our conflict with the Drovians. Their technology is unlike anything we've seen. Hold position and avoid further provocation if possible," Zhao ordered. "Earth Defense Command is attempting diplomatic contact on multiple fronts. We need time, Captain." The transmission faded into static, leaving Sarah staring at the alien vessels surrounding her ship. The Thunderchild, humanity's great hope, now seemed terribly small and vulnerable in the face of this unknown force. "Power levels at 28% and stabilizing," Wade reported. "They seem to have stopped draining us for now." Sarah returned to her command chair, mind working through their options. The aliens, these Keepers, clearly possessed technology far beyond humanity's understanding. But they hadn't destroyed the Thunderchild outright, which meant they wanted something. Information. A demonstration of human capabilities, or perhaps, as they'd said, they were still deciding humanity's fate. "All stations, maintain alert status," she ordered, "and prepare for possible boarding action. Whatever these Keepers want, they're going to learn that humans don't surrender easily." The hours dragged by with excruciating slowness. The Thunderchild remained suspended in the grip of the Keeper vessels, its power levels hovering just below 30%, enough to maintain life support and basic functions, but not enough for weapons or propulsion. Every member of the crew felt the weight of Earth's future on their shoulders. Sarah paced the bridge, stopping occasionally to check status reports or confer quietly with her officers. 6 hours had passed since their last communication with Admiral Zhao. 6 hours of waiting, watching the alien ship's pulse with that strange, synchronous rhythm. "Captain," Thompson said, approaching with a datapad, "engineering has a proposal." Sarah took the pad, scanning the schematics quickly. "They want to reroute power from life support to the experimental drive system." She frowned. "That's a significant risk. Chief Engineer Patel believes the Keeper technology is focused on our main power systems. The experimental drive runs on different principles. It might slip under their radar." Thompson lowered his voice. "And with reduced life support, we have about 4 hours before conditions become critical." Sarah handed the pad back, weighing their options. The experimental quantum displacement drive was still in testing phases, a potential revolution in human spaceflight that had been installed on the Thunderchild as a backup. It had never been used in combat conditions. Tell Patel to begin preparations, but don't execute until my command, she decided, and have medical prepare for potential casualties if the displacement field is unstable. As Thompson moved away, Lieutenant Rivera called out, "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Keepers." Sarah straightened her uniform. On screen, the alien appeared again, its iridescent skin seeming to pulse in time with the ships surrounding the Thunderchild. This time, Sarah noticed other figures moving in the background. More Keepers, their forms blending almost seamlessly with the organic structure of their vessel. "Your species intrigues us, Captain Chen," the Keeper said without preamble. "We have observed your communications with your homeworld. Your defiance persists despite your situation." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "Defiance is something of a human specialty. So we have observed throughout your history." The Keeper's multifaceted eyes shifted to a deep green. "Your conflict with the Drovians. Explain it." Sarah glanced at Thompson, then back at the screen. "The Drovians attacked and destroyed our colony on Io, killing 2 million civilians. When they threatened another of our settlements at Proxima, we defended ourselves. The Drovians claim Io was sacred to them, a birthplace of ancient life. They never mentioned this until after they'd destroyed our colony," Sarah replied, feeling the old anger rising. "The consortium had approved our settlement there years earlier. If Io was so important, why didn't they say something then?" The Keeper was silent for a moment. "Your weapons. They are designed to kill, not disable. Because we've learned that showing weakness in this galaxy is an invitation to be exploited," Sarah responded. "The consortium races treated us like children until we proved we could defend ourselves. The Thunderchild isn't just a warship. It's a statement that humanity will not be bullied or marginalized." "Interesting." The Keeper moved closer to whatever was transmitting its image. "We will board your vessel now. Resistance would be unwise." The transmission cut off before Sarah could protest. She immediately turned to her security chief. "Lieutenant Howard, deploy security teams to all primary access points. Non-lethal measures first, but be prepared to escalate if necessary." "Captain," Howard acknowledged, already dispatching orders through her comm unit. Sarah addressed the bridge crew. "Remember your training. We don't know what these beings want or what they're capable of, but we represent Earth out here. Whatever happens next may determine humanity's future in this galaxy." "Captain," Wei called out, his voice tense, "I'm detecting energy fluctuations throughout the ship. They're coming through the hull somehow." Sarah had barely processed his words when the air in the center of the bridge began to shimmer. The temperature dropped suddenly, frost forming on nearby consoles as the shimmer coalesced into a translucent, doorway-like structure. Through it stepped 3 Keepers, their tall, slender forms even more imposing in person. Security officers immediately trained their weapons on the visitors, but Sarah raised a hand, signaling them to hold fire. The lead Keeper, the same one they'd spoken with earlier, she thought, surveyed the bridge with its shifting, multifaceted eyes. "Your technology," it said, its harmonic voice even more unsettling in person, "is primitive, yet effective." It moved toward the tactical station, where Jackson tensed but held his ground. "You accomplished much with limited resources. We're adaptable," Sarah replied, moving to stand between the Keeper and her crew. "Now state your purpose here. Why have you disabled my ship?" The Keeper turned to face her, and Sarah fought the urge to step back. Up close, she could see that what she'd taken for skin was actually millions of tiny scale-like structures that shifted and realigned continuously, creating the iridescent effect. "We have existed in this galaxy for millions of your years, Captain Chen. We have watched species rise and fall. The consortium races are young compared to us, mere children playing at governance." "And humans?" Sarah asked. "You are younger still. but troubling. Your advancement is accelerated, unnatural. The Keeper gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them, showing Earth's technological progression over the past 2 centuries. No species develops as rapidly as yours without external guidance. Sarah exchanged glances with Thompson. We've had no guidance. Everything we've achieved, we've done on our own. Impossible, stated the second Keeper, its voice deeper than the first. Your weapons technology, your drive systems, they echo patterns we have seen before. A chill ran down Sarah's spine that had nothing to do with the temperature drop. What are you suggesting? The lead Keeper moved closer, its face now just inches from Sarah's. She could smell something like ozone and seawater emanating from its form. There was a race, long ago, that nearly destroyed this galaxy with their ambition. We contained them, but some escaped. We believe they have been influencing your development. Sarah felt as though the deck had dropped out from under her. That's absurd. Humanity has struggled for everything we've achieved. No alien race has been secretly helping us. Not helping, corrected the third Keeper, who had been examining the ship's engineering readouts. Using. Preparing. Your Thunderchild. It carries equipment that should be beyond your capability to create. Sarah thought of the experimental quantum displacement drive, the advanced weapon systems that had given Earth its first real victory against a consortium power. Had there been some external influence in their development? The thought was both disturbing and offensive. Captain, Wei called urgently. Power levels are dropping again, down to 20%. At the same moment, the ship's communication system crackled to life. UES Thunderchild, this is Admiral Zhao. 7th Fleet has engaged Keeper vessels in the Mars orbital zone. Be advised, we are encountering resistance. Recommend immediate withdrawal from your current position if possible. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the transmission before it cut out. The 3 Keepers turned as one to face the communication station, their bodies suddenly pulsing with a bright blue light. Your kind never learns, the lead Keeper said, its voice now lacking any hint of curiosity or patience. You will resist, you will fight, and when you realize what you face, it will be too late. Sarah felt the ship lurch beneath her feet. Through the viewports, she could see the surrounding Keeper vessels intensifying their energy field, drawing closer. All hands, brace for impact, she ordered, grabbing onto a nearby console. She locked eyes with Thompson and gave a subtle nod. Now, Thompson tapped his communicator. Engineering, execute Petel protocol. Across the ship, power systems began to shift and reroute. The lights dimmed as life support scaled back to minimum levels. In engineering, Chief Patel activated the experimental drive that the consortium races had dismissed as a primitive attempt at new technology. The drive whose true origins now seemed disturbingly unclear. The lead Keeper tilted its head, sensing the change. What have you done? For the first time since their encounter began, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Something very human, I assure you. We improvised. The Thunderchild shuddered violently as the experimental drive engaged. A high-pitched whine filled the bridge, growing in intensity until Sarah felt it in her teeth. The air around them seemed to warp and stretch, reality itself bending as the quantum displacement field formed around the ship. Field integrity at 60% and climbing. Thompson called out, gripping his console as the deck plates vibrated beneath them. 70, 80. The 3 Keepers moved with sudden urgency, their bodies flaring with pulsing light as they attempted to reach the nearest console. Security officers fired stun weapons, but the energy bolts passed harmlessly through the aliens' forms. You do not understand what forces you are tampering with, the lead Keeper warned, its voice distorting as the displacement field strengthened. This technology is forbidden for a reason. Sarah ignored the alien's warning. Field at 90%, she announced, reading from her own display. Prepare for displacement in 3, 2, 1. The universe seemed to fold around them. Every crew member felt the disorienting sensation of being simultaneously compressed and stretched, as if their bodies existed in multiple places at once. Through the viewports, the surrounding keeper vessels blurred and then vanished, replaced by the empty blackness of unoccupied space. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation stopped. The whine of the experimental drive faded to a low hum, and reality reasserted itself. "Status report," Sarah demanded, fighting through a wave of nausea. "Displacement successful," Wei confirmed, his voice shaking slightly. "We're approximately 2.3 light-years from our previous position. No sign of keeper vessels on sensors." A ragged cheer went up from the bridge crew, but it died quickly as they realized they weren't alone. The 3 keeper representatives still stood on the bridge, their forms now pulsing with angry red light. "That shouldn't be possible," Jackson muttered. "Nothing should have survived the displacement field except the ship itself." The lead keeper moved toward Sarah, its movements jerky and unnatural, as if it were fighting against some invisible force. "You have made a grave error, Captain Chen. The technology you've activated is more dangerous than you can comprehend." "It got us away from your ships," Sarah replied, nodding to security to surround the aliens. "I consider that a success." "Not away," the keeper corrected. "Through. You've punctured the barrier between spaces that should remain separate. And in doing so, you've revealed yourselves to something far worse than us." Before Sarah could question this cryptic statement, alarm klaxons blared throughout the ship. "Captain," Rivera called out, "we're receiving distress signals from Earth. Thousands of them. All at once. Put it on screen," Sarah ordered, her momentary triumph evaporating. The main display flickered to life, showing a chaotic stream of emergency broadcasts from across Earth and its colonies. Military channels, civilian communications, automated distress beacons, all transmitting simultaneously. The images they showed were nightmarish. Massive ships, far larger than even the keeper vessels, appearing in orbit around Earth, Mars, and throughout the solar system. Unlike the iridescent, organic forms of the keeper ships, these were angular, crystalline structures of impossible geometries that seemed to hurt the eye when viewed directly. "What the hell are those?" Thompson whispered. "The precursors," the second keeper replied, its harmonics dropping to a register that made everyone on the bridge feel inexplicably afraid. "The race we told you about. The ones we contained. You have drawn their attention with your displacement technology." Sarah stared at the screen in horror as one of the crystalline ships fired on a human defense platform, slicing it cleanly in half with a beam of coherent darkness. "That's impossible. You said they were contained ages ago." "In another space-time fold," the lead keeper explained, moving to stand beside her. "A prison dimension we created to isolate them from this universe. Your displacement drive, the technology they seeded your scientists with, creates a momentary bridge between realities, enough for them to sense you, to find you." Sarah turned to face the alien, fury overriding her shock. "You're saying these precursors have been influencing human development? That they gave us the displacement drive technology?" "Not gave," the third keeper corrected. "Infected. Like a virus in your collective consciousness, ideas appearing in dreams. Intuitive leaps that shouldn't be possible. They've been preparing humanity as a tool for their return." On the screen, more of the crystalline ships appeared around Earth. Admiral Jeo's 7th Fleet engaged them, their most powerful weapons barely scratching the alien vessels, while the precursor ships responded with devastating efficiency. "This is why we disabled your vessel," the lead keeper said. "This is why we were studying you. We detected the precursor influence in your technology, but we did not anticipate you would activate it so soon." Sarah's mind raced, processing this revelation while watching humanity's forces being decimated on the screen. If what the keeper said was true, then the Thunderchild, the vessel meant to establish humanity as a power to be respected, had instead triggered what looked like the beginning of Earth's annihilation. "How do we stop them?" she demanded. The three keepers exchanged what seemed like silent communication, their bodies pulsing in synchronous patterns. Finally, the lead keeper spoke. Your displacement drive created the bridge. It might also collapse it, if modified correctly, but it would require more power than your ship currently possesses, and trust in the very beings who were disabling us an hour ago, Thompson added skeptically. Sarah studied the keeper for a long moment, then glanced back at the screen where Earth's defenses continued to crumble before the precursor assault. She had sworn to protect humanity, to ensure that tragedies like the Io massacre never happened again. Now, humanity faced extinction. Lieutenant Wei, work with the keepers. Find out what modifications we need to make to the drive. She turned to her engineering officer. Lieutenant Kim, I need options for boosting our power beyond normal capacity. Captain, Thompson said quietly, if we trust them, and they're wrong or lying, we could lose everything. If we do nothing, we definitely lose everything. Sarah replied grimly. I'm choosing to believe they have as much interest in stopping these precursors as we do. As the crew scrambled to their tasks, a new transmission cut through the emergency broadcasts on the main screen. The image of Admiral Zhao appeared, his uniform scorched and bloodied, smoke filling the bridge behind him. Thunderchild, if you're receiving this, be advised. We've discovered these crystalline vessels are vulnerable to concentrated tachyon bombardment. Repeat, tachyon bombardment is effective. Static disrupted the transmission momentarily. We've lost 80% of the fleet, but we're still fighting. If you can deploy your prototype tachyon lance, now would be the time. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Sarah turned to her weapons officer. Do we still have the tachyon lance prototype aboard? Rodriguez nodded slowly. Yes, Captain, but it's never been field tested, and it would require almost all our remaining power to charge. Sarah looked back at the lid keeper. You said we need more power to modify the displacement drive. What about weapons? Could we use this tachyon technology against the precursors? The keeper's multifaceted eyes shifted to a deep purple. The tachyon lance. This was not part of their influence on your development. This is truly your creation. Developed after the Io massacre, Sarah confirmed. Purely human innovation born from necessity. For the first time, something like respect seemed to emanate from the alien being. Then perhaps humanity is more than just their tool. It turned to its companions. We must reconsider our assessment. The lead keeper faced Sarah again. Your tachyon weapon might damage their vessels, yes, but more importantly, it could disrupt the space-time bridge they're using to enter this dimension. Combined with a modified displacement drive, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since the precursor ships had appeared. We could close the door on them and seal it permanently, the keeper agreed. But the power requirements would be enormous, far beyond your ship's capabilities. Lieutenant Kim stepped forward. Captain, if we initiate a controlled overload of our main reactor core while channeling the energy through both systems simultaneously, the ship wouldn't survive. Thompson finished for him. Sarah looked around at her bridge crew, at the men and women who had trained for years to serve aboard humanity's most advanced vessel. The Thunderchild had been built to announce humanity's arrival as a galactic power. Instead, it might have to sacrifice itself to ensure humanity had a future at all. Begin preparations, she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision. And send a message to Earth. We're coming home, and we're bringing company. The Thunderchild pushed its engines beyond safety parameters as it raced back toward Earth. The journey that should have taken weeks at conventional FTL speeds took mere hours with the modified displacement drive, each jump bringing them closer to home and draining their already limited power reserves. On the bridge, Captain Chen watched the tactical display with growing dread. Earth's orbital defenses were in ruins. The 7th Fleet had been reduced to a handful of vessels fighting a desperate holding action. The crystalline precursor ships moved through Earth's defensive grid with methodical precision, their weapons carving through humanity's most advanced technology as if it were tissue paper. Final displacement complete. Way announced as reality stabilized around them. We're in the Sol system, approaching Mars' orbital zone. Status of the modifications? Sarah asked, turning to where Lieutenant Kim and the lead keeper worked feverishly at the engineering station. Tachyon Lance is integrated with the displacement drive, Kim reported, his face drawn with exhaustion. Power systems are reconfigured for the overload sequence. Once initiated, we'll have approximately 3 minutes before the core breaches. 3 minutes to save the world. Thompson muttered beside her. No pressure. Sarah managed a tight smile despite the gravity of the situation. Alert all hands. Prepare for emergency evacuation on my command. No one stays aboard except the essential bridge crew and engineering team. As evacuation protocols began throughout the ship, the main screen shifted to show their approach vector. 8 massive precursor vessels hung in Earth orbit, their crystalline structures refracting sunlight in hypnotic patterns. Smaller ships, both human and keeper, engaged them from multiple vectors with limited success. We're being hailed, Rivera announced. It's Admiral Zhao, from the UES Indomitable. Zhou's face appeared on screen, looking even more battered than before. Captain Chen, good to see the Thunderchild in one piece. Though I'm curious about your passengers. His eyes flicked to the keepers on the bridge. It's complicated, Admiral, Sarah replied. But they're helping us. We have a plan to close the breach the precursors are using to enter our space, but we'll need your help. She quickly outlined their strategy. The Thunderchild would approach the largest precursor vessel, the apparent command ship, and deploy both the Tachyon Lance and the modified displacement drive simultaneously. The resulting energy cascade would theoretically collapse the space-time bridge the precursors were using, sealing them off from this dimension. But we need a diversion, Sarah finished. Something to draw their attention while we get into position. Zhou's expression was grim but determined. The remains of the 7th Fleet are at your disposal, Captain. And, he hesitated, glancing off-screen, we've been joined by unexpected allies. The view widened to show a Drovian commander standing on the bridge of the Indomitable. The tall, ridge-faced alien inclined its head slightly toward Sarah. Captain Chen, I am Commander Zevnar of the Drovian Expeditionary Force. The Consortium has authorized immediate military assistance against this threat. Sarah couldn't hide her surprise. The same consortium that considered us barely worth acknowledging a month ago. The precursors threaten all spacefaring civilizations, the Drovian replied evenly. And there has been a reassessment of humanity's importance to galactic stability. How convenient, Sarah said with a hint of bitterness, but she nodded acceptance. We'll take all the help we can get. Coordinate your attack with Admiral Zhou's forces. We need 10 minutes to reach optimal position. As the transmission ended, Sarah turned to her crew. This is it, the moment the Thunderchild was built for. Not to intimidate, not to threaten, but to protect, to save lives. Even if it costs us our own, Thompson added quietly. Sarah met his gaze steadily. I've ordered all non-essential personnel to evacuate. Anyone who remains does so by choice. And we've all made that choice, Captain, Rodriguez said from the weapons station, determination evident in his voice. Around the bridge, other officers nodded in agreement. The lead keeper moved to stand beside Sarah, its multifaceted eyes shifting through a spectrum of colors. We were wrong about humanity, it admitted. We saw only the violence, the ambition, the dangerous potential. We failed to recognize the courage. We contain multitudes, Sarah replied with a faint smile. It's what makes us human. The Thunderchild accelerated toward the massive precursor command vessel, weaving through the chaotic battle unfolding around Earth. True to their word, the combined forces of the 7th Fleet, the Drovian contingent, and even several keeper vessels launched a coordinated assault on the other precursor ships, drawing their attention and fire away from the Thunderchild's approach. Target locked, Rodriguez announced as they closed on the command ship. Tachyon Lance charged to 70% capacity and rising. Displacement drive modifications complete, Wei added. Field integrity at maximum. Sarah took her command chair for what she knew would likely be the last time. Begin the core overload sequence. Kim's fingers flew across his console. Overload initiated. Power levels rising beyond safety parameters. 3 minutes to critical breach. The ship shuddered as systems began to overload, warning alarms blaring throughout the bridge. On the main screen, the crystalline structure of the precursor command ship loomed larger, its impossible geometry seeming to bend and shift before their eyes. "They've noticed us," Jackson warned. "Multiple energy signatures charging." "They're targeting us." "Evasive maneuvers," Sarah ordered. "Keep us on approach vector. All power to forward shields." The Thunderchild rolled and pivoted, avoiding the first salvo of energy beams from the precursor vessel. One strike grazed their starboard side, overwhelming the shields and scorching a deep furrow in the hull. "Shields down to 40%, Thompson reported. "Another direct hit, and we're done." "We won't need another hit," Sarah replied grimly. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, prepare to fire the Tachyon Lance on my mark." "Tachyon Lance at full charge, Captain." "Displacement drive ready," Wei confirmed. Sarah took a deep breath, watching as they closed the final distance to their target. Everything had led to this moment. Earth's future, humanity's survival, all resting on the Thunderchild's final mission. Fire. The Tachyon Lance discharge, a brilliant beam of coherent energy that struck the precursor vessel directly in its center. Unlike conventional weapons that had barely scratched the crystalline ships, the Tachyon beam pierced deeply, sending fractures spreading across the alien structure. "Direct hit," Rodriguez called out. "The Lance is disrupting their molecular cohesion." "Activate the displacement drive," Sarah ordered. Full power, the familiar whine of the displacement drive filled the bridge, building to an ear-splitting shriek as the overloading core fed it power beyond its design specifications. The space around the Thunderchild and the precursor vessel began to warp and distort, reality itself tearing at the seams. Core reaching critical levels, Kim shouted over the noise. 90 seconds to breach. The lead keeper moved to the engineering station, its form now glowing with intense blue light. "The bridge is beginning to collapse," it confirmed. "But something is wrong. The precursors are attempting to stabilize it from their side." Sarah watched in dismay as the fractures in the precursor vessel began to heal, the crystalline structure reforming despite the continuous beam of the Tachyon Lance. "We need more power," she realized aloud. "We need to overload the core now, not in 90 seconds. Thompson stared at her. "That would mean no evacuation." Sarah finished for him. "I know." She looked around at her crew, at the men and women who had volunteered to stay, knowing the risks. "It's been an honor serving with all of you." Before she could give the final order, the three keepers moved to the center of the bridge, joining hands to form a triangle. Their bodies began to pulse with blinding light, tendrils of energy extending from them to connect with the ship's systems. "What are you doing?" Sarah demanded. "Providing what you lack," the lead keeper replied, its voice strained. "Our life energy can supplement your core overload. It will be enough." "You'll die," Sarah protested. "We have lived millions of years, Captain Chen. Your species deserves its chance at the future." The keeper's eyes fixed on hers. "Tell your people our story. Tell them that balance must be maintained." Before Sarah could respond, the keeper's bodies flared with impossible brightness. Energy surged through the Thunderchild systems, the Tachyon Lance intensifying to twice its previous power. The displacement drive howled as the field expanded, engulfing both the Thunderchild and the precursor vessel entirely. "Spatial rupture detected," Wei called out, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and the screaming drive. "The bridge is collapsing." Through the viewports, Sarah watched as space itself seemed to fold inward around the precursor command ship. The crystalline vessel shattered, its fragments pulled into the collapsing dimensional rift. Around Earth, The other precursor ships began to disintegrate as their connection to their home dimension severed. "The plan is working," Thompson shouted. "All precursor vessels are being drawn back through the rift." "Core breach imminent," Kim warned. 10 seconds. Sarah gripped the arms of her command chair. "It's been an honor," she repeated, closing her eyes as the countdown reached 0. The expected explosion never came. Opening her eyes, Sarah found the bridge bathed in soft blue light. The 3 keepers stood at the center, their forms now translucent, barely holding together. "We have contained the breach," the lead keeper said, its voice fading. "Your ship is safe. Your world is safe." "How?" Sarah asked in disbelief. "We have merged with your technology. Become one with the displacement field." The keeper's form flickered. "We will maintain the seal between dimensions from within, for as long as necessary." As the keeper's physical forms dissolved into pure energy, the displacement field stabilized. The viewports cleared to show Earth still intact, the precursor vessels gone without a trace. Throughout the ship, systems began to return to normal parameters, the core stabilizing at safe levels. "All precursor ships have disappeared from our space," White confirmed, scanning his readings in disbelief. "The dimensional breach is sealed." "And the keepers?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Their physical forms are gone," White replied softly. "But energy readings suggest their consciousness remains, somehow integrated with our displacement drive. They've become guardians of the seal." Sarah stared at the space where the keepers had stood moments before. Enemies turned allies, now transformed into something beyond understanding. Eternal sentinels protecting not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. "Captain," Rivera called, breaking the stunned silence. "We're receiving transmissions from Earth." They're cheering." On the main screen, images appeared from across Earth and its colonies. Crowds gathering, celebrating their unexpected salvation. The remaining ships of the 7th Fleet, joined by Drovian vessels, and even a few keeper ships, forming an honor guard around the Thunderchild. Sarah Chen, captain of humanity's most lethal warship, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The Thunderchild had been built as a symbol of humanity's determination to be recognized, to be respected. In the end, it had become something more, a bridge between species, a sanctuary for ancient guardians, and the savior of Earth itself. "Take us home," she ordered quietly. "Our mission is complete." 3 months after what was now being called the precursor incursion, the Thunderchild docked at Earth's newly reconstructed orbital station. The massive warship, once a symbol of humanity's military might, had become something else entirely. A living legend, its name whispered with reverence throughout the galaxy. Sarah stood at the viewport in her quarters, watching Earth grow larger as they approached. The planet showed scars from the battle, orbital debris still being cleared, the occasional flash of reconstruction vessels at work, but it had survived. Humanity had survived. Her door chimed softly. "Enter," she called, turning as Thompson stepped into the room. "Final approach underway, Captain," he reported, then smiled. "Though I suppose I should get used to calling you Admiral now." Sarah glanced down at the new insignia on her uniform with a mixture of pride and discomfort. The promotion still doesn't feel real. Neither does any of this, sometimes. "The hero's welcome waiting for us down there is very real," Thompson replied, "as is the new Galactic Council seat for humanity." In the aftermath of the precursor attack, the Galactic Consortium had undergone a radical transformation. The near destruction of Earth had forced the elder races to acknowledge both their vulnerability and humanity's crucial role in saving them all. The old power structure had crumbled, replaced by a more equitable Galactic Council, where Earth now held equal standing with races that had once dismissed humans as primitive upstarts. "Any word from engineering on the latest tests?" Sarah asked, changing the subject. Thompson nodded. "Dr. Wei confirms what we suspected. The Keeper's consciousness remains integrated with the displacement drive. They're dormant most of the time, but they respond when the drive is activated. They're maintaining the dimensional seal from within, just as they promised. Sarah had insisted that the Thunderchild not be dismantled or studied too invasively after their return. Whatever the Keepers had become, they deserved respect and protection. Surprisingly, Earth's leadership had agreed, perhaps another sign of how much the precursor incursion had changed humanity's perspective. "And the Drovians?" she asked. "Commander Zevnar is leading the diplomatic delegation attending tomorrow's ceremony." Thompson's expression turned thoughtful. "It's strange to think that just a few months ago, we considered them our greatest enemy." Sarah nodded, remembering her sister and the millions lost at Io. The pain was still there, but it had transformed somehow. "We've all changed, I think. Gained some perspective." A gentle vibration ran through the ship as docking procedures began. On her desk, a small holographic projection activated automatically, a rotating model of the Thunderchild, now officially classified as a peacekeeping vessel rather than a warship. Its unique modifications and the presence of the Keeper consciousness within its systems had made it one of a kind, a bridge between species and technologies. "I should get to the bridge," Sarah said, straightening her uniform. "The crew deserves to have their captain present when we dock." "They are waiting for you," Thompson agreed, stepping aside to let her pass. The corridors of the Thunderchild hummed with activity as Sarah made her way to the bridge. Crew members nodded respectfully as she passed, many of them new faces assigned to replace those lost during the battle. The ship had spent weeks in space dock undergoing repairs, its unique systems carefully preserved while battle damage was addressed. When she reached the bridge, the entire command crew stood at attention. Many faces showed signs of the ordeal they'd survived, new scars, haunted eyes. But there was pride there too, and something else, purpose. "As you were," Sarah said, taking her place in the command chair for what would likely be the last time. After tomorrow's ceremony, she would be reassigned to Earth Defense Command, overseeing the integration of human and alien technology into Earth's defensive grid. "Final docking sequence initiated, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced from the helm. Home at last. As the Thunderchild settled into its berth, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought them here. The ship had been built to show humanity's strength, to demand respect through power. Instead, it had become a vessel of cooperation, sacrifice, and ultimately, peace. "Captain," Wei called from the science station, "I'm detecting an energy fluctuation in the displacement drive." Sarah tensed momentarily, then relaxed as Wei continued. "It's a harmonic pattern, similar to what we observed when the Keepers communicated with each other." "They know we're home," Sarah said softly. The main view screen showed the welcoming committee assembled in the docking bay, high-ranking officials from Earth Defense Force, diplomats from the newly formed Galactic Council, and representatives from a dozen alien species. Among them stood Admiral Zhao, still recovering from his injuries but standing tall, his chest bearing new medals for valor. "Docking complete," Rodriguez reported. "Airlocks secured and verified." Sarah rose from her chair, looking around at the bridge crew one last time. "Before we disembark, I want to say something." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "When we left Earth 4 months ago, we were on a mission to show the galaxy that humanity wouldn't be pushed around anymore, that our lethal warship would make them think twice about dismissing us." She smiled slightly. "I think we succeeded, but not in the way any of us expected. The Thunderchild didn't earn respect through intimidation. It earned it through sacrifice, through cooperation, through the willingness of its crew to risk everything to save not just Earth, but all sentient life." Around the bridge, heads nodded in agreement. Even Lieutenant Jackson, who had been the most ardent supporter of Earth's military buildup, looked thoughtful. "Whatever comes next, for this ship, for humanity, for the galaxy, I believe we've set a course that honors those we lost and creates a better future for those who will follow us." Sarah straightened, squaring her shoulders. "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your captain." The following day, beneath a cloudless sky in Geneva, Sarah stood on a stage before thousands of assembled dignitaries and citizens. The ceremony marking Earth's formal induction into the Galactic Council was being broadcast across the planet and to colonies throughout the solar system. As she prepared to deliver her address, Sarah's gaze drifted upward, to where the Thunderchild orbited invisibly overhead. Within its modified systems, ancient guardians now watched over humanity, their consciousness entwined with the technology they had once feared. The Drovian representative, Commander Zevnar, approached her before she reached the podium. "Captain Chen," he said, using her military title despite the promotion. "Before you speak, I wish to offer something." He extended a crystalline object, a memorial stone, sacred in Drovian culture. "This contains the names of all who died at Io," he said quietly, "and all who died defending Earth against the precursors, both human and Drovian. We remember them together." Sarah accepted the stone, feeling its weight in her palm. "Thank you, Commander." "The stars have always called to us," Zevnar said, echoing words similar to Sarah's own thoughts that day on the Thunderchild's bridge. "Perhaps now we can explore them as allies rather than rivals." As she stepped to the podium, Sarah felt a strange sense of completion. The Thunderchild had been built because of the tragedy at Io, a response to humanity's treatment by the elder races. Now it had become the foundation for a new beginning, a symbol not of humanity's lethal capabilities, but of their capacity for growth, adaptation, and cooperation. "Today," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd, "we take our place among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. The challenges we have faced have shown us that our strength lies not just in our warships or our technology, but in our humanity, our ability to forge connections even with those we once considered enemies." Above, unseen but ever present, the Thunderchild continued its orbit, carrying within it the consciousness of beings who had lived for millions of years, once humanity's adversaries, now their silent guardians. The alien Armadas had indeed been shaken by humanity's lethal warship, not through force of arms, but through the courage, sacrifice, and unexpected compassion of its crew. And in that shaking, a new galaxy had been born.